Happy Wednesday. How's your week going? It's crazy here in Portland. It's absolutely beautiful. It's some of the nicest weather we've had all year. And in fact, the weather tells us we're under a fire watch for this weekend because it's so dry. Can you believe that? I mean, Portland, dry. I mean, it's like this just doesn't happen. But it is dry and it is beautiful, which makes it hard to work. I'll be perfectly honest. It just keeps calling my name to go sit at a sidewalk cafe somewhere. But of course, with COVID, you're not supposed to be out and about. You're supposed to be staying home. But sometimes I do walk to the park, and it's been grand fun. We have 11 baby ducks at the park. It's been just beautiful watching them grow up. But anyway, I'm here with you. I got my coffee. Life is good. We've got the full team with us today. In the studio, we have Teacher Michelle, Teacher Marisa, and Tech Man Parker. And then on the other side of the wall, we have students. Yay, students! It's so fun to be back in school. And Teacher Michelle, or Teacher, get it right here. Teacher Carolyn is out there with the students. Then online, we have Caledonia. She's with us on Facebook. And we have Susie with us on YouTube, and we have you. Now don't forget, if you're on your phone, turn it sideways for a bigger picture. If the comments get in the way, you can swipe, and it makes it go in silent mode. I didn't know that until a little while ago. Kind of exciting to know you can do that. If you want to put the comments on the bottom, just turn your phone back up, and that way it goes down. So you've got choices. If you are on your computer, you can go full screen. If your internet is misbehaving, and it's not buffering well, and we start spinning, and it makes you crazy, just stop, take a breath, pour yourself a cup of coffee, start it again, do a refresh, and we'll come right back. And if it just totally makes you crazy, step away. Hopefully you can go out in the sunshine, and then come back and watch us on replay. So let's get started. We're talking Mother's Day. And I asked the Tulip Tribe to share with me their questions about Mother's Day. And I got a whole list, so we'll try to squeeze it all in. I think we'll be able to. Should be fine. I would love it if you've got specific questions to go ahead and type them in now as well, because everyone will be watching. They'll verbalize it to me, and we'll try to fit it all in. And of course, introduce yourself, add your tulip if you're part of the tribe, and let's get started with flowers. One of the things that came up as a question is, how do you know what to buy? How do you choose? How do you write a recipe? How do you speculate? And one tip that Teacher Jerry responded with, and I concur, is to pick a color palette. So for today, I started with a color palette of the pinks to the purples. And if I was buying for Mother's Day, I might start with pinks to purples because those are popular colors. They're seasonal, they seem appropriate, and they can be feminine or they can be a little more dramatic depending on which purple and which pink that you go. But I would do a full palette. So my first tip for you when ordering for Mother's Day is determine ahead of time your color palette and purchase within that palette. And then enhance that palette with just a little bit more. So once I have my color palette, and I said I was doing analogous pinks to purples, because pink is in the red category, so coming over into the pink to the purple range. And I actually went over to a little bit of blue with a hydrangea. Okay. I think about what would be a good harmony color to complement that. So when you're dealing with purple, a complement would be yellow. So I added in just a little bit of yellow so that if I wanted to make it zing, make it be a little more festive, I could add a touch of yellow. If you wanted to switch from that analogous of pinks to purples and think about more into the pinks to yellows, then adding in some peach, some yellow to let it go that direction. So I do a primary buy with one color palette, and then I enhance with a few things in different colors, because that will give you the variety that you need so that it doesn't look like it's all one arrangement. Because everybody wants to be unique. They want to think that theirs is the most special ever, but you have to be logical about your buying, because you can't buy thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of flowers and only sell $1,000 worth. You've got to make sure that you buy what you can sell. So tip number one is pick a color palette and work with that. And then you can start on. So in this color palette, I've got some carnations. I've got a little bit of rose, some blueberry, and I thought those colors looked great. So right now I'm monochromatic, but then I wanted to go a little deeper, more intense, darker hues. So I've got Lysianthus and that really fabulous eggplant purple, and some China asters, Matsumoto asters. Then I scooched the other direction and went to the lighter, the pastel, the blue with hydrangea. So I might set that. I have one fuchsia dendrobium that I snitched from the classroom because I thought that kind of worked with all of this that I had. But as I work with my palette, I start like this. I pick a variety of things that will all work together. But then, tip number two, always add something just a little bit special. Something that's unique, something that's maybe more expensive, something that will catch their eye. Because they'll go, ooh, wow, look at those lovely mini carnations, and what great roses, and oh, I like hydrangea, and all of that. But then, what if you were to throw in some blooming branches? All of a sudden it's unique, it's special, it's seasonal, it jumps out at them. So adding in just something a little bit different, a little bit more exotic, it could be a Cymbidium orchid. Adding in something dramatic, something tropical, makes it seem even more special. You can see they'll work well with those carnations. The colors still work. Maybe it's something a little bit wild, a little bit weedy, like you went out in the woods and harvested, which we didn't, we bought them. But we've got poppy pods, we've got bunny tail grass, we've got oats. And merging that changes the look of the design. So pick a palette, enhance the colors, and then add in a little bit of exotic. So there's three things there that'll help you as you're planning. Now, as I take a sip of coffee, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and Marisa and Parker and say, what's going on out there? What do I need to answer? Who's here and what's happening?
Well, we've got people clocking in from, as usual, all over the globe on YouTube. Australia, California, New Jersey, can't read my own writing, I think that says Connecticut. And lots of tulips, they're still kind of checking in and getting their hellos and welcomes to each other.
Excellent.
And over here on Facebook, we have so far, I see, just a couple popped in, so let's do a shout out to them. Okay, so Gerald and Casey, and then I have written down Carl, Robin, Jennifer, a couple of Donnas, David, Debbie, Evangeline, Denise, Cherie, Anya, Cindy, Nicole, Tabitha, Arthur, and Molly, but I wanted to do a shout out for Molly because she's asking if anyone out there in Phoenix needs help.
Okay, so if you are in the Phoenix area, Molly's ready to come to work. So reach out to her.
And she is a past graduate.
Okay, Molly is an FDI graduate and she's ready. So she's in the Phoenix area. This is the perfect place in this collaboration for you to introduce yourself and find out who might be hiring, who might be doing something, or maybe you are looking to hire someone. feel free to go ahead and chat amongst yourself on that while I start designing. Now, one of the questions was, how do you know what is a popular color? That's a tough one because it's going to depend on where you are and where your customers are and their personalities. As a rule, the most popular for Mother's Day is really all your spring. A lot of focus on pinks, purples, fuchsia. Think peonies, hydrangeas, roses. So the softer colors, those would be the most popular, it seems like, around Mother's Day. Now that doesn't mean that you're not going to see yellows and oranges pop in, especially with Pantone choosing yellow as the color of the year. It's getting more and more popular. Last week I decided was a yellow week for me. It seemed like every time I turned around something was yellow. I was just like, oh my gosh, everything's yellow. But usually Mother's Day, the popular colors are going to be that pinks to purples and blues. That's your color palette. As far as popular design, it's generally casual, eclectic, soft. And so for something like that, adding in vines, this is jasmine vine, can be a wonderful enhancement to your bouquets. You can see it's got little pink and white florets, so it goes along with the color palette. But by having the vine, it gives me the ability to have softer movement in my arrangement. So I'm going to start with a little bit of jasmine vine and then one of the hydrangea. Then when it comes to the design, the other thing to think about as you are preparing for your Mother's Day holiday is that time is going to be vitally important. You don't have forever. You've got to get these flowers designed and ready and out the door. So thinking hand tie or vase is always a smart move because they're faster, they are soft and relaxed, so that meets that need. It's easy to use a variety of different flowers, so you don't have to think, oh, I must have this particular bloom. You can use whatever you happen to have on hand, which allows you to think about substitutions and switching it out. Wax flower is good for Mother's Day because it has a little bit of scent, a very soft scent, but scent is kind of important these days. People are liking that. They want scent in their designs. So if you can incorporate that easily, hydrangeas don't have scent, but the wax flower does. Then coming in with the blueberry rose, which is a very long laster, and that's important. If you can get flowers that will last well, makes it easier for you as you're working, but also it makes it better value for the customer. So I'm going to weave some flowers in here into a very small hand tie, and while I do that, you guys tell me what else is going on.
I had a question. Suzanne wanted to know how to keep hydrangeas from wilting so quickly.
Ooh, great question. So hydrangeas, couple of things. One, when you receive them, I like to treat them with Quick Dip. Quick Dip is a rapid hydrating pre-treatment. So you dip them in the Quick Dip. I always cut with a knife. I think that works better. So I cut with the knife, dip it in Quick Dip, then put it in a vessel of water and let it hydrate overnight before you use it. They'll always do better if you leave them to drink for a while. Then, when it comes to the actual design time, I find they'll do better if you take the time to dip them in alum. So after I design and I go through and I cut these and get ready to put that into a vessel, I would just take the cut hydrangea stem and dip it in the alum powder and then set it down into the vase or insert it into foam, whichever you're doing, and it holds so much better. I do the alum at the point of design. That seems to help the best. Marisa, what do you have?
I have a question about tulips. If you cut tulips, how long can you keep them in the cooler to use, and then how long will they last as an arrangement?
Tulips, if they're tight when you get them, you can put them in an arrangement and they're going to last 4 to 5 days. If they started to open, cut days off there. So if you've got beautiful open tulips, you might only get 2 or 3 days. Storing them in the cooler, if the temperature's correct, which you want it down very low, close to freezing, like about 34 degrees. A lot of coolers aren't that cold. But if you do have it that cold, you could store them for a week in the cooler and still have lots of time when you take them out. So it's just a matter of really thinking about planning ahead, getting them when they're tight, so that the customer lets them be tight and open out in their environment rather than your environment.
And then a question about curly willow. Debbie is having a problem with hers drying out quickly.
Curly willow must be fresh when you get it, which right now it might not be, because curly willow is starting to leaf out. And so what they're selling oftentimes is what they harvested earlier this year before it started leafing out. So it's already a little bit on the old side. But if it's still got pliability to it, if you can still manipulate it and maneuver, give it a strong cut and put it in warm water. It will drink a little faster. I know we're supposed to use cold water for most things now, but I find the curly willow, if I'm really trying to get it to get pliable, a little bit of warm seems to help soften that wood, and let it, again, drink overnight and then be ready to start designing with it. I find if you keep it hydrated, it will never dry out as long as you keep it with water, because it'll start to root and it will start to grow and it will start to leaf out. And it will stay very, very pliable without any problem.
Leanne, Bernadette has a question. It seems that flowers are like hit and miss right now, especially down there in Florida where she's at, and she's getting a little anxious about what might or might not be for Mother's Day, and wants to know any insight from us as a larger company that has it in on the inside loop.
Good question, and that in fact is one of the things that I wanted to address next, so let's kind of go there. A question that the Tulip Tribe had brought up ahead of time is, how do you deal with substitutions, availability, pricing? It's all kind of the same question. And then, just as you asked, with the issues of getting product right now, how do you plan ahead and be able to take care of your customer? So on this one, I'm putting it in a very small vase. This is going to be my least expensive option in my price point variation. So I'm cutting it down very short so that it's just a very sweet little nosegay style bouquet. Let me get that cut.
Leanne, Elaine says this is perfect. She's taking notes because she's working for Mother's Day at a shop in San Francisco, and her job today was to watch live and see what Leanne tells us to do.
Oh dear, so I better not screw up because you're taking notes. Oh my goodness. So yeah, let's kind of go back to this then, because reality is we all have a challenge this year that's more so than we've had in a lot of years. Although I will have to confess, it's not really much different than it was in the 70s and 80s. Back in the day, before transportation was easy and all the imports started coming in, availability of flowers on the holidays was always temperamental. Always, always, always. And I can remember going down to buy flowers, and you had to go in pairs, 2 people, because one would pick up flowers and set them on the table. Then one would stand and guard the table while the other one kept going out to get more flowers. And then somebody's basically guarding, you know, making sure, get away, get away, get away, these are my flowers. And that's kind of where we're going back to right now with this shortage that's happening. The key, I think, this is Leanne's opinion, is that we all have to be a little careful and not focus on the shortage to the customer, because if they think there's a shortage, A, they may choose to do something besides buy flowers, thinking, well, better be safe than sorry. I'm not going to do flowers because there's a shortage. I'm not going to be able to get anything. We don't want that to happen. The other thing that could happen is you're working and you've sold this beautiful, casual, country hand-tied bouquet with luxurious hydrangeas and long-lasting miniature carnations, and we've got these fabulous blueberry roses that just hold and hold and hold. You're going to love them, but if they think there's a shortage, they're going to be looking to see what might be wrong. And you don't want to give them that ammunition. You don't want to scare them. You don't want them to think, oh, I can't do it because I'm not going to be able to get anything. I'm not going to be able to do this, so I'm not going to do anything. We don't want that. We want them to call and order flowers. So as you're working and you're thinking about availability and the fact that availability might be difficult, what I would invite you to do is, rather than sell specific flowers, sell a concept, a country gathered assortment of flowers, individually sourced for you from my favorite farms, to make sure I get everything perfect for you. And you know what? They are so cool. Look at these Lysianthus. I think you should have some of this Lysianthus. It's so beautiful, but you don't even tell them that unless you have it. If you don't know what you're going to have, so you're selling this tomorrow for Mother's Day, then it is a country collection of beautiful farm flowers, hand-picked for you to be perfect for your mother. And it just makes it sound so special. And you can see these bouquets are different, but they're similar, except this one's a little more expensive. I'm doing price point number 2. So this person, in addition to the lovely roses and hydrangea and jasmine, gets Lysianthus, which are so voluptuous and fabulous, and it's going to be more expensive. But that's okay, because they want something that's just a little more special, because they haven't been able to see their mom for more than a year. It's been really tough because COVID has kept them away, and they want the perfect flowers for Mom. And oh, by the way, Mom loves to garden, and she really likes things that are a little bit natural. Could you make sure it looks like it went out in her garden and gathered it? Oh, sure. Why don't we add some beautiful grasses to give it a very casual look? They don't have to know it's bunny tail grass. It's grasses. And then you find whichever grass you can buy, or you go out in the field and you harvest a weed. It doesn't matter. The fact is, you just need a grass. And so all of a sudden, it's looking a little more gardeny, and it's a little bit more special because it has the Lysianthus. And then you think, well, you know what? Matsumoto aster looks even more casual and gives it that pop, and gives one more flower. And yes, I used one. And I used one. And I used 2. That's the other thing that I think we're all going to have to free ourselves with, is that we can use random numbers. We don't have to have 3, we don't have to have 5, because if flowers are on a shortage, but you have one of the most fabulous something, then use it and be thrilled. But don't feel like you have to have 5, because you might not be able to get 5. It just may not be an option. And so give yourself the freedom to work with different numbers and to change it out. Now, by adding this little bit of height with the grasses in here, it makes this design look a little bit fancier, a little bit more luxurious. Of course, it's a little bit more expensive, but that's okay, because this mom, she needs that. They haven't seen her for more than a year. Did you hear that? Did you remember? And we all have to think about that. Everybody's on edge. Have you noticed that? There's a little more of a meanness to life sometimes. And I don't think it's because people are truly mean. I think it's because people are truly scared and tired and done. And so we as frontline retail, we get that. And sometimes they take it out on us. And they're like, oh, my life is so hard. And you're like, you're right. Your life is hard. But we can make it more beautiful. I can promise you, your life will be so much more beautiful with our flowers. And so as florists, this Mother's Day, not only do we have to be designers, we're going to have to be psychologists. It's kind of like, oh my gosh. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this one off while I get that done with my price point number 2. What's going on?
Arthur has a question. However, I would like to address this to the Tulip Tribe to get their opinion. So he's asking if customers turn up their noses to carnations. So are people finding that people still don't want carnations, or are people starting to embrace them? Because I love them.
So that is a great question for the tribe. I'll repeat that because I know it's hard to hear with everybody off camera because we're all masked up. We are COVID safe around here, so we're way far apart and we're all wearing masks except for me. And so sometimes you can't hear. The question, and I put this out to each and every one of you, what do you think about carnations? Popular or dud? Good? Bad? Are popular and wanted, or shunned and not wanted? What is your thought on the carnation world? Because that is an excellent question. And we'll come back to that. So Marisa or Michelle or Parker, somebody make sure I come back to that, because by the time I start talking again, I'll forget and I'll not do that.
May I really quick, because I'm getting answers already that they love carnations, which again I do too, but I'm wondering what their customers are wanting. Do they want the carnation, the customers?
Okay, so the question is, are the customers buying carnations and wanting carnations? So in price point number 2, I added the Lysianthus, I added a Matsumoto aster, I added the grasses, and I go to a taller vase. Notice it's the same though, but it's taller. So then I have to just cut this down, same story. Get that cleaned out here. Set that in place. So now we have price point 1 and price point 2. So answering the popular design question, think casual, flowing, soft, variety. A standard dozen roses isn't quite as popular right now. Colors, thinking of the pinks to the purples to the blues, but not being afraid to add in a deep, vibrant purple or even a pop of yellow. Price point. That was a key question that one of the tribe brought up ahead of time when I put the question out on the group. And my answer to that is you want multiple price points. So price point 1, price point 2. Now let's go to price point 3. So I'm going to scooch things around here so that there's room for you to see, but I don't want them to disappear, so we're going to come back to them. So this might be where I grab my branch, because anytime you add height, you add value, and they are just so much fun. Aren't those great? Oh, I love it. The question is, do I want to leave this one or take it off? And I think I'm going to leave it. It means it's going to be flowing this direction, but it's so lovely that I hate to take it off of there. So I'm going to use it on. Okay. Then with my first 2, I used more inexpensive hydrangeas, the standard blues. And they're a little bit less expensive so that the design can be a little less expensive. This one is going to be a bit more exotic. So going into the more expensive, heavier purple. Plus with that more woody stem and woody feel goes great with the woody branch. Okay. Continuing on though with a bit of the jasmine, because we know vines are popular. We know that's good. So rather than skipping it on the design, make sure to include your vine in there. Plus, now my lines are carried through so that it finishes out. It doesn't just stop. It gives me a little better balance. So thinking about flower school, all your elements and principles still need to be there. All your balance, all your focal emphasis, everything. This one has a dead tip. So thinking about flower school, making sure and clipping that out of there so that it doesn't have a dead tip when you deliver it, because they'll be disappointed. Mother's Day is a holiday that oftentimes has a lot of emotion involved, because people feel guilty because they don't see mom often enough, or they feel guilty because they don't like mom, or they feel guilty because they can't see mom. But all these things, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, talk about the emotional angst. And you as the florist has to find the perfect flowers when there's a shortage, when you may not be able to. But if you sell a casual country bouquet, draping with beautiful flowers. See, they're draping. Ah, you can say dripping with beautiful flowers. They're dripping, soaring to the sky with a lovely branch. Doesn't matter what branch it is, but it's a country casual bouquet. Then again, still sticking in your flowers, you gotta have some roses, because mom loves roses, you know. Plus that keeps me on theme here with my 3 designs. Okay. So the question about price point that had come up is, I think you always want 3 price points. Think small, medium, large, lavish, regular. That's not very good. Lavish, traditional, and petite. You don't want to say it's ugly and little and cheap. It's petite. But a petite design doesn't mean that it's an ugly design. It just means that it's less expensive. Now, this one is our most lavish, so they get an orchid too. Oh man, how grand is that? But notice it's 1 orchid, 1 hydrangea. So again, making it work with the fact that you may not be able to get as many flowers as you would like. And so you're having to be creative and adjusting and tying it together with a variety of things that just kind of work together. It's still lovely. I'm going to bring it around one more and add 1 more Lisianthus in here. This one gets 2 Lisianthus because this is our luxurious version. Okay. Finding the perfect spot for it. There we go. And then turning it. And the branch just cradles the flowers. So it gives me a nice little connection. I'm going to keep adding flowers since this is the luxurious one. You guys tell me what else is happening.
So Heidi says she loves your concept of one of everything. It makes each one seem more special.
I think so. You know, some people say, oh no, it seems lonely. And if you did a bouquet of 12 of something and stuck one in it, that one would be lonely. But if you do lots of ones, it's not really just one, it's lots. It's many. And they just happen to be all different ones, but it might end up being a dozen or 25 or 50. But by mixing and matching, it gives you freedom. What else is happening out there?
Let's see here. Arthur wants to know, are orchid corsages still a thing at the grocery store for Mother's Day?
It's interesting because I hadn't seen orchid corsages at the store like we used to every Easter and Mother's Day. And they're sort of starting to come back, which is kind of interesting. I've only seen them a couple places, so I don't know if it's everywhere. So I can't tell you that it's a definite thing, but I do think that flowers to wear are coming back and that more and more people are starting to do that. So yeah, it's a thing. I think so.
And I have quite a few comments about our carnation discussion, if you would like to hear about that.
Yes, let's chat about that.
Okay, so it looks like the majority of the tulip tribe, we all, as florists, love carnations. Okay, there's only a couple of us that did not like them. The majority of their customers seem to like the carnations. It all just kind of really just depends on the customer. But I have some really great comments that some people have made. Carl says, they used to not be his favorite flower, but now that they are, explaining to the customer that they're lush and long lasting.
Good words.
They want them. Jody also says it really depends. They tried to get unique colored carnations in. And then Nicole, I loved this answer. She makes them look more expensive by mixing and matching other colors and materials with them.
Definitely. It's how you use it, the colors that you choose, and then how you present it. So long lasting and lush, ruffled. Some people like the fact that they have ruffled petals. Scented. Some carnations have great scents. They're very spicy, which is so grand. So there's lots of ways you could present it as a very luxurious, fabulous flower. I would have to say the consumer is more open to the carnation than they have been for a lot of years. And I think part of the reason is that we as florists have more interesting carnations than we have had for a lot of years. So which came first, I don't know, but I think it does make a difference. So now price point 3, a taller vase. So while I get things ready, what else is happening?
Over on YouTube, Dennis had some insight about the carnations thing. He said he's had some clients up front say no carnations, but a lot of times if you don't talk about it or discuss it, most will just be pleased with all the new colors that are available in there. And Elaine said she gets the variegated ones, and people don't even know they're carnations.
So true. I think they're surprised sometimes of what a carnation is because they look so different now, color-wise and textures, definitely.
So Leanne, speaking of these carnations, Donna I was trying to answer her and I'm like, I can't really explain. What color would you say those mini carnations are?
Oh my gosh, that is a question that causes me great anxiety. Great anxiety.
Red violet?
Red violet.
I call them, and this is dating me, Dubonnet, because there used to be a ribbon that was named Dubonnet, and it is a red violet. But years ago, I had a wedding that was fuchsia, but I was out of town, and my designer was doing it, and they worked with the wholesaler and did fuchsia. And this is what they called fuchsia. But what I call fuchsia is much more hot pink. And I got back the day before the wedding and just had a heart attack because this is not fuchsia. My bride's going to be horrified. And so we had to redo the entire wedding to get it fuchsia. So to me, this is Dubonnet. Or if you wanted to use a wine word, it could be Merlot. But it's not fuchsia. And yet many people call it fuchsia and they're wrong. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. But anyway, so that's probably more than you wanted to know. But that's just kind of my words there. So now I'm going to lay these out and then we're going to jump ahead because I have a few more things we want to talk about and answering questions to get ready for Mother's Day. Price point 1. Price point 2. Price point 3. All easy and fast to make. All of them a country casual bouquet in a beautiful ceramic vessel. But if you sell it as a casual country bouquet, it doesn't matter if you had bunny tail or maybe you had oat grass. I could put some oat grass down in this one. Let's see if I can get this the right height. It doesn't have to be a bunny tail because you didn't tell them bunny tail. You said, I'm going to add grasses to make it look more gardeny and a little more wild. So let's add oat grass into this one, which adds some height in there, which I wanted right there in the center because it adds value. So when it comes to those substitutions and those choices that we all have to make, if you sell wisely a country casual bouquet, then you've got every flower you could possibly need or want without any problem because you haven't promised anything to anybody. Now, what happens if you have your country casual bouquet and you have a customer come in and says, oh, I need flowers for my mom. She is so hip and happening. She is rad. I don't know if that's a trendy word these days, but she's, whatever. She's cool. And so, she's effing. I don't know, whatever they say these days. I'm just like, okay, I don't know the right words. But what if they say that and you go, well, I have country casual hand ties. But you can fix that. For that super cool, hip, happening mom, you run, not walk. Okay, you walk because of workman's comp and safety and OSHA. But you walk and you get your paints and you make it hot pink and fabulous, fuchsia, you might say, and cut it and enhance. And all of a sudden, this casual country bouquet becomes sort of urban chic because who puts hot pink leaves in a country bouquet? Nobody. So now this is urban chic for that hip and happening mom. Or they say, oh, this is for my grandmother. She's so classy and everything has to be perfect. She loves her golden candlesticks. Well, again, go running. Grab your gold paint. And you know what? Grandma gets golden accents because she's special and she deserves it. But adding in the little special touch to personalize is easy if everything's already done and you've sold a theme but not a specific flower. So substitutions are two ways. One could be substituting because you couldn't get a flower, and the other is substituting because you need to make it a little more personalized to match that particular person's story. So all of a sudden, now we have grandma with her golden candlesticks, we have hip, rad, cool mama, with her hot pink leaves. Or maybe you just want something kind of creative, something a little bit edgy. So taking some and just dusting them with a bit of teal makes it almost look peacocky. And I couldn't find my peacock feathers, or I would have taken some feathers and put in here too, you know, but you'll have to imagine that. Visualize that there's a peacock feather in here, and just bringing in the peacock foliage at the bottom, and then peacock feathers coming up to the top. And all of a sudden, again, it's a one-of-a-kind, eclectic design that's easily adjusted. And then price point, back to that, I find if you take the time to show 3 different price points, most of the time, people will spend a little more money because they can see what happens if you spend $20 more, it gets way bigger. Or if you spend $30 more, it gets way bigger. And so when they might have thought, okay, I'm going to come in and spend $10, I'm making these price points up, you know, there's nothing up here at $10. But they say, I was only going to spend $10, and all of a sudden they spend $50 because they see it. And I think that's one of the disservices that we do to ourselves is we don't show bigger. Now you might sell more of this size and a few of these and just a couple of these, but you would never sell any of them if you didn't show them. So thinking about 3 price points, 3 different levels, and having it ready so that they can just grab and go. And it's easy, so it works out really well. So substitutions I think I've dealt with. Another question that came up was staging blooms. And how do you know when to buy them so that they're absolutely perfect and beautiful when you want them to be beautiful? The biggest thing is there's no magic to that, unfortunately, because flowers come in differently and it depends on your refrigeration, what you have. If you keep everything at room temperature, it's not going to last as well as if you put it in a flower cooler. So knowing that, then you have to buy your flowers closer to the need point. If you've got good refrigeration, you can bring them in a week early and then have them staged and ready. But some varieties, and this is where you have to know this, you have to be the professional, some varieties open slower and some faster. So a tulip, you really don't want to bring those in too far ahead. They open quickly. This one was closed almost when I brought it in. I stole it from the class, so I took one out. So you guys, when you're filling out the vases, there's one missing. But they open very, very quickly. So bringing these in closer to the holiday. An oriental lily, like a stargazer or a Casablanca, they could take a good 5 to 10 days to open. So you might need to bring them in a full week early and then still send them out in a bud stage so that then they open out beautifully for the customer, giving them the longest vase life. So staging blooms takes a while and a bit of intuition and a lot of knowledge. There's not a magic answer. If I had one, I would give it to you, but you really have to get comfortable with your flowers. So I know many of you, when I've had you in class, I've told you, be sure and start a flower diary. And when you have a flower, write down, when did you buy it? What time of year? What was the season? And how long did it last? And then keep track of that so that next year you can go back and say, okay, lilacs were available April 15th. And they lasted to about May 15th. But when I purchased them, I found that they really only lived 4 or 5 days and they dried up pretty quickly. You might not know that if you've never touched a lilac. So those are things you've got to kind of practice with. Now, an odd one that I had was, how do you wire a tulip? And how do you wire a dendrobium? So I will show you that. I'm thinking, well, that really isn't Mother's Day. But then I thought, well, it is sort of because of proms and flowers for mom to wear. So I will do that. I'm going to snitch a dendrobium bloom. Okay. For the dendrobium, many times I just glue them. So if you've been to flower school and you've done a glued corsage, that's what I do most of the time when I'm working with a dendrobium. Looking for a fine wire here. Let's see. Then I use thin wire. A 26 gauge is nice, so a thin 26 gauge wire. And I do it one of two ways. I'm going to show you both so that you can see. You don't need a super long wire, so I cut it down. One is to bend it into a hairpin. So I've done a hairpin. Then feed that through the throat. So right down through the throat, like so. Making sure you don't capture the petals. Okay. And then tape that lower portion. Okay, so that's one technique. So you could glue it, which is my first choice. Two is to hairpin through the center and then tape. The third option, I'm going to take this back out, is to pierce right at the base of the throat. So you just go through the chin. I know that's probably not the chin, but it looks like a chin to me. So you just go through the chin and then you tape right there. So that's how I would wire a dendrobium. There are other ways, I'm sure. So if you have another favorite way, God bless you, go for it. The key is that it's delicate, light, and nicely taped. You don't want it to be messy, you don't want it to be heavy, you don't want it to be thick. But how you get to that, nice and tidy and lightweight, there's lots of right ways to do it. Now the tulip, it has a very fat stem. So when you cut the stem, cut it at a strong slant. So I've slanted it like this when I cut it so that it's very, very long. That way when you tape it, it tapers down as opposed to a blunt cut. Then when you wire, you pierce through the petals and repeat that. So you're cross piercing. So think back to flower school, because you learned pierce, hairpin or hook, cross pierce, and I cross pierce again. Then I bend it down, okay? Then a tip for the tulip. Take a little tiny bit of your Oasis Floral adhesive and put it on those back petals, and it glues them so that they don't try to open. So it just tacks it together and forces it to stay as a bud. So that will keep it tight so it doesn't open out into a cup, because that's not really what you want if you want a tulip boutonniere. Now if you want it as a cup, then open it as a cup first and go ahead and use it. But if you don't want it to cup, take the time, I'm not going to tape it, and then just tape down, but adding that little tiny bit of glue solves that. So that's sort of a little side question that we got answered there. Now, one thing I want you to know is we prepared a playlist on YouTube. Susie made it public this afternoon. So if you go to YouTube, or no, not YouTube, yeah, YouTube. Where am I? Go to the Flower School channel of YouTube. So, log into YouTube, go to Flower School. On the front page at the top is a Mother's Day inspiration playlist. And it's all of our Mother's Day videos all in one playlist so that you can get more inspiration to help you get started and thinking about what you can do to keep your customers super, super, super happy. Now, I've got time to do one more, so I'm going to grab some of my other colors, but sticking with the palette I purchased to begin with. So I have my hydrangea, so I've got my pinks to the purples. I have my mini carnations, because being consistent, and Doing it still in the hand tie because I want to make sure that it's fast, easy, efficient for the holiday, because we know we don't have time to do things that are hard when you have all these people wanting to buy from you. So you've got to be prepared, but maybe they don't want just pink and purple. Maybe they want something a little different. Maybe they like apricot and peach. So tucking some hyacinth in, which also gives it great fragrance. Oh my gosh, this is pretty fabulous. And the purple and the peach are fun together. And since the purple is variegated to this almost chartreusey green on the inside, gives it a little bit of a pastel tinge. And if you think about your color wheel again, orange, green, and violet is a triad. So I've got this green here, and violet, and apricot or peach, which is in the orange family. So it gives it a little bit of a triad. Then I tucked in the Dubonnet mini carnation. Then I might come back with a straw flower. Straw flowers are coming back into popularity. Doesn't that make you laugh? If you were a florist when I started, you would just go, really? Again? And yes, again, they are. And it just makes me so happy. What goes around comes around. Then maybe bringing in more of the green with the oat grass. And I'll keep designing. If you guys have other questions or things I should be answering or anything I forgot that I said I'd come back to.
Well, Nicole had mentioned earlier that with the shortage of materials during this time, she really thinks that it's going to force designers to think out of the box.
I agree, Nicole. This gives us the opportunity to be so creative and to really share the varieties and the alternatives that are available to us. It's just a wonderful, wonderful time. I know that sounds kind of Pollyanna-ish, but I do truly believe it. Sometimes we get comfortable and we forget that there are choices that can be made, and then we just do the same thing every time. And then we complain because, well, we always do the same thing. It's so boring. And I'm thinking, well, then don't do the same thing. And this gives you the opportunity to explore what those differences are. So I think that's great. Good comment.
And then Leanne, I know you kind of touched on this already, but I had a couple people kind of ask in more detail. So for those florists that actually have websites with like pre-made pictures of floral arrangements on their sites that their customers are going to choose from, do you have any tips on your like phrases on how to talk about that? Oh, it's not going to be just like the picture, or
That is a tough one, because if they're ordering from a website with a photo, that's in their head. And so, if at all possible, only show things on the website that you're really pretty sure you're going to be able to get. So that means you're going to have to minimize, and maybe you have a page. These are our fabulous Mother's Day offerings, and just have a variety of mixed Mother's Day things. And then I would definitely add verbiage that says, Mother's Day is such a wonderful time of the year. Everything is blooming. We have so many spectacular things, we can't even put them all on the website. Pick a designer's choice and we'll choose the most fabulous for you. But explaining to them in a positive mode, not, oh, we might not be able to get it. Don't say that. Say, we have so much available to us if you let us pick and adjust so that you get the best things ever. Oh boy, are you going to be happy. And us too. And then if everybody's happy, then we all win. So I think that's the biggest thing, is on the website to make sure and present that you may add in or change to something that is absolutely spectacular that you didn't know you'd be able to get. And that way they can be happier, definitely. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions?
Well, kind of off topic, but I thought really wonderful. Anne Marie wanted to say thank you for the tip on the grapes. Her lilies lasted 3 days.
How fun, good, I'm glad to hear that. So if you missed that, you'll have to go to one of our past live streams. But you know, every time is different, so you never know what you're gonna miss or what you're gonna see. And just come to the live stream each and every week, because we don't even know what's gonna happen half the time, because it's live. And so things just sort of do whatever they're going to do. It never is gonna be the same. And we don't even really totally plan it all out, because if we did, we'd just disappoint ourselves. Just like with the customers at Mother's Day, don't plan it all out. Let them be pleasantly surprised with how fabulous you can design. But the key is to make sure and tell them that you're going to be designing fabulously and that it's going to vary based on how grand these items are, so that you can give them the best ever. Trying to get my branches loose here. Adding in branches because it gives it a more contemporary look and adds size. Anytime you make it a little bigger, they think they get more for their money. So tucking that in solves that tininess and makes it just more fabulous. And again, it's a casual country bouquet. Probably need a vine, because I said everybody should have a vine, so we'll stick that in here too. Plus it adds a tiny bit of fragrance. So now next week is Earth Day. So teacher Marisa is going to be on camera, and she'll be talking about eco-choices with recycling, repurposing, reusing, and creative genius. You can just imagine where that's going to go, because there's so much opportunity. And for those of you getting ready for Mother's Day, that's another one that can be good for Mother's Day, because it'll help you think about how to use the items, how to adapt based on availability, how to work with what you have. So it's a perfect opportunity to join us again on live. Now, if you enjoyed this, please share. If you want to learn more, come to Flower School. We have online classes to where you learn all of this and so much more, and you're part of the tribe. So hopefully you'll join us one of these days soon. Share, subscribe, send us money, you know, just all the stuff. It's just like Mother's Day for you, it's Flower School for us. But for most important is to get out there and do something you love right now, each and every day. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.